Peppermint Patty group. So we are going to do our very first guided reading lesson together. So if you remember last year when you were in kindergarten, you probably spent some time working with your teacher at their reading table, reading books. You might have worked on some sight words. You might have done some word work together. And so that's what we're going to do in this activity. So you probably have already worked with your sight word for this week. And then in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to do some word work. So we're going to do a making words activity. Now, you may have done making words before and you may not have. And if you've never done making words before, that's okay, because I'm going to teach you exactly what you need to do in our making words activity. And then after we do our making words, then we're going to read a book together. And I'm going to kind of pop in as you're reading and kind of talk to you about some things. And we'll talk about our book that we've read. And then after you get done reading the book, then you're going to go back to Seesaw and you're going to do a graphic organizer for me. Now, a graphic organizer is just kind of two big words that mean kind of like a worksheet, but it's a place for you to put your thoughts down and kind of organize what you're thinking. So we'll talk more about what that's going to look like in just a minute, but welcome to your first guided reading lesson, and I'm excited for us to get started. All right, so let's get started with our making words activity. So first thing you want to do is make sure that you have all of these letters ready to go. So remember, you don't have to have magnetic letters like I have. If you just want to write them and cut them apart, or if you want to print what I sent to mom and dad and cut those apart, both of those work just as fine. So make sure that you have these letters ready to go. If you need to, pause the video, and then when you're ready, press play and we'll get started. Okay, so let's get started with our making words activity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you a word that I want you to do your very best to spell and stretch out on your own and see if you can put the letters together to spell that word. So I will tell you the word, I'll put it in a sentence just so you make sure that you hear the word correctly. And then I'm also going to tell you how many letters are in the word. So kind of help you out a little bit. It'll be like a little hint. Okay, so let's practice one. This will just be practice, but we'll add on to it. So let's start with the word see. So I'm not talking about like a big body of water, that kind of see. I'm talking about like when I look with my eyes and I can see you. So the word is see. Like I can see the green grass. See. And that word has 3 letters in it. So I'm going to give you a second, and then I want you to see if you can spell out the word see. If you need to, you can pause the video and just press play whenever you're ready to go. All right, so let's see. I hear C. I definitely hear that S sound at the beginning. And then I hear E. I definitely hear the E sound. But I'm looking at this and I'm going, wait a second, there's 3 letters, so I'm missing something. But when I think back to what I know that there is a hunk and chunk that we haven't learned yet, but we're going to. But I know there's a hunk and chunk that makes that E sound that has 2 E's, a double E. So I bet it's S-E-E. Very good. So if you didn't have that, go ahead and fix it. But if you did, great job. And good job, everybody. Good job trying. All right, so that's what it's going to look like, okay? So let's add on a little bit more. So now we're going to see if we can spell the word seed. Seed. Now, seed has 4 letters in it. And I'm going to give you a hint too. You're not going to do anything with these letters. You're just going to add a letter on. So think about, where do you hear that new letter and what letter sound do you hear? So seed. All right, so if you need to, pause it, make your word, and then press play. All right, so let's see. We've got E. I already have that C sound, but now I hear seed. Now I hear that D sound at the end. So I spell seed, S-E-E-D, and we still hear that E-E hunk and chunk. Very good. All right, so next word is going to have 4 letters still, so I'm going to leave that up there. So our next word has 4 letters, and it's the word feed. feed. So again, leave everything where it is because you're only going to switch one letter. But think about, what letter are you going to switch? What sounds different? Feed. Like, I'm going to feed the cows. Feed. All right, so if you need to, pause it and then press play when you're done. All right, so let's take a look. I definitely still hear that "eed" sound at the end, but what I hear that's different is that beginning sound. I hear "eed." So instead of that S sound, I hear that F sound. Feed. So we spell feed F-E-E-D. Very good. All right, so our next word has 4 letters in it, and it's the word week. Now, I'm not talking about whether you're strong or weak. I'm talking about like in a week, like a time period. So from Sunday to Saturday, that is 1 week. So think about what you hear and see if you can spell that word week. And if you need to, pause it and then press play when you're finished. All right, so let's look, because I hear a couple of different sounds in this word. So I definitely still hear that E, that double E, the E-E sound. But at the beginning, I definitely hear something different. I hear w, that W sound. And then now I hear eek. I definitely don't hear that D sound anymore. I hear the K sound. So we spell week, W-E-E-K. Now let me show you a little something. There are a lot of words that when we say them, they sound the same. But when we write them, they're spelled differently and they have 2 different meanings. So we have the word we spelled, which was week, which was like from Saturday to Sunday. But like I said before, there's another kind of week. Like if you're talking about if you're strong or weak, right? Like if you can't maybe carry a lot or something like that. And you can see we say it the same, but they're spelled differently and they have 2 totally different meanings. So sometimes that might happen when we're doing making words, which is why it's really important that you listen to the sentence that I put it in, okay? All right, so we're gonna leave everything where it is. And then our next word is actually gonna have 5 letters in it. And our next word is cheek. Cheek. Like my cheek got really rosy when I was embarrassed. Cheek. All right, so remember, pause it if you need to, and I'm actually going to show you a little trick. What I usually do when you come to sit at my table and we do making words is I'm going to have you not move any letters until I snap, okay? So now let's try that. So when you're ready, go ahead and see if you can make the word cheek, and pause it if you need to. All right, so let's look and see. I still hear that eek at the end, so I'm not going to change anything on the end of my word. But what I do hear differently is that beginning sound. So we don't hear the w sound anymore. We hear that ch sound. And that actually is a hunk and chunk that we learned last week. That C-H, C-H, and you may have already known that, and that's okay. That's wonderful if you already knew that. So we're going to take that W away, and I'm going to put that hunk and chunk, my C-H. So we spell cheek, C-H-E-E-K. Very good. All right, so we're going to practice this for our last word. Remember, don't move any letters until I snap, okay? So just listen to the word, listen to the sentence, and then I'll let you know when you can start, okay? All right, so let's do our last word. Our last word has 5 letters in it, and it's the word creek. Creek. Like a creek is a small stream of water. Creek. All right, so now see if you can make the word creek. And remember, pause the video if you need to. All right, so now let's look and see. We've got creek. I still hear that C sound at the beginning. And I still definitely hear that double E, the E sound, and I definitely still hear the K sound at the end. But what's different is that letter that comes after that C. So I hear krr. So I think I'm going to switch out that H with my R. And look at that. All I had to do was move 1 letter and I made a whole new word. That's what's really cool about making words. All you have to do is change 1 letter and you can make a whole brand new word. It's so cool. So let's see how we spell creek. C-R-E-E-K. So if you don't have that, make sure you fix it. If you do, wonderful. And you guys did such a great job on your very first Making Words activity. So I hope you guys liked that, because we're gonna do it a whole lot in first grade. And the reason we do it is because it helps us with our letters and our letter sounds, and it helps us remember how to spell words, and it helps us see patterns in words. Like all of our words today had that double E, that E sound in it. So making words is really important. You did a great job for your very first one, and so let's see what we're gonna do next. All right, so you guys have worked really hard already for your very first guided reading lesson. So now is a really good time if you need to go take a break, like maybe you need to go to the bathroom, maybe you just need to get up and move around and stretch, maybe go get something to drink or a snack to eat, or maybe you want to pause the video and come back to it at a later time. That's fine. But now is a really good time to go ahead and take a quick break. So press the pause button if you need to. If you don't, let the video keep playing, and then I'll see you back here in just a second. All right, so let's get started with our book. Now you may be thinking, Miss Bale, there's no book on my screen, and that's right. That's how it's supposed to be. So first, before we start reading our book, I want to introduce a really important strategy that we can use when we get stuck on a word. Because we're going to talk about all year long when you get to a word, because it's going to happen, sometimes it even happens to Miss Bale, you're going to get to a word that you get stuck on and you don't know what that word is. And so we're going to talk about things that you can do to help you figure out that word on your own. The most important thing is that I don't want you to look to an adult or somebody else to just tell you the word. Because guess what? If you do that, you're never going to learn what the word is. So I want you to try to figure it out on your own. So the strategy we're going to talk about today that you can use if you get stuck on a word is called Skippy Frog. Now you may have heard of this one before, but it's exactly what it says. You're going to skip the word that you're stuck on, read the rest of the sentence, and then you're going to go back and read the sentence again. That way you can kind of see what word would make sense there. It kind of helps you figure that out. So when we get into our book, there's going to be a page that I'm going to pop up again, and I'm going to kind of show you what that looks like, okay? But before I did that, I wanted to introduce this really important strategy that we will use all year long. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's read our story, Gilbert the Pig Has an Adventure. So in this story, there's a farmer, and the farmer leaves the gate open on his farm, and Gilbert the Pig, he decides to leave the farm and go on an adventure. So we're gonna read to find out what kind of adventure Gilbert takes. But what I really want you to focus on while you're reading the book is I want you to think about what's happening in the story. Because when you get finished reading the book, you're gonna go back to Seesaw and you're gonna retell the story. So means again. That means you're going to tell the story again, retell the story. And I want you to be thinking about what happens in the beginning of the story, what happens in the middle part of the story, and what happens at the end of the story. Something else that I want to make sure that I mention before we get started is if the video is ever moving a little too fast and is not giving you enough time to read, remember you can always press the pause button. So press pause, and then when you're finished reading that page, then you can click the play button and move on to the next one, okay? So let's go ahead and read and find out what kind of adventure Gilbert takes. So one thing that really strong readers want to make sure that you do when you're reading a story is to always be asking questions. So when I look at these two pages and I read these two pages, my question that I think of is, why did the farmer not stop to close the gate? It makes me really curious to know, why was he in such a hurry and he didn't stop to close the gate behind him? So stop and think about that for a second. What do you think? Why do you think the farmer didn't stop to close the gate? And I want you to either think about it in your head, or if there's somebody sitting by close to you, turn and tell them. What do you think? All right, so here's where we're going to practice our Skippy Frog strategy. So if you remember, before we started reading the book, I talked to you guys about a really good strategy that you can use if you get stuck on a word. So that just means like you get stuck and you don't know what the word is. So I'm going to pretend to get stuck on a word and show you guys what that looks like. I'm actually going to start on page 7. So let me show you what that looks like. Next, Gilbert came to a yard with a big black duck. Maybe the duck would play with him. I'm kind of stuck on this word right here. I don't really know what that word is. Okay, so let me skip it because I see it twice. I'm going to read the rest of the sentence and then I'll go back and see what makes sense. So let's see. Said Gilbert. Well, I know, first of all, I know the O-I, hunk and chunk, makes that oi sound. And I know Gilbert's a pig, and I know pigs say oink, so I bet that's what it says. I bet it's the word oink, and it says it twice. So let's see if that makes sense. Oink, oink, said Gilbert. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think I figured it out. So remember, if you ever get stuck on a word, use that Skippy Frog strategy to help you and skip that word, read the rest of the sentence, and then go back and read that sentence again to see what would make sense. Well, I don't know about you all, but I thought that was a really cute little book about a really cute little pig and his adventure that he took. So now what I want you to do is think about what happened in the story, because strong readers always want to be able to go back and retell what happened in the story. And you don't have to tell me every single little thing that happened, but you want to be able to tell me all of the big things that happened in the story. So what I want you to do is think about what happened. Then you're going to go back to Seesaw and you're going to fill in that graphic organizer, and where it has the B, you're going to tell me what happened at the beginning of the story. And then where it has the M in the middle, you're going to tell me what happened in the middle part of the story. And then where it has the E, you're going to tell me what happened at the end of the story. And then don't forget to turn it into me and I'll take a look at it. Great job on your very first guided reading group, you guys. I will see you again next week for a new word work activity and a new book to read.